Hey. And we are live. And thank you so much for everyone who is joining. And you know this guy, right? Who doesn't know this guy? This guy is Brendan Kumarasamy. And in case you didn't know this, he is LinkedIn's communication expert. And he's also the founder of Master Talk. And if you haven't been to Master Talk, please go check that out on YouTube. How many subscribers? Something like over 25 billion or something like that?
Not quite yet, Laura. We just eclipsed 17K.
17K. Well, thank you so much for coming today. And we are going to be talking about something that I'm hoping has been going on in your mind. And if it hasn't, let me plant this seed. You're going to be in front of a lot of people over the holidays, even virtually, right? And so the question is, how do you have high impact conversations with low pressure, right? Because nobody wants to be at that party and feel like somebody's, overselling themselves. But you don't want to miss out on those amazing opportunities to plant the right seeds, to build a relationship and see where that goes. It could be a referral for a job opportunity. It could also be, any kind of speaking or thought leadership. So please, Brendan, what are your kind of thoughts on this high impact, low pressure, and how would you approach it for some of the scenarios that we're going to be talking about?
This is why I always love talking to you, Lauren, because even when everyone else wants to zig, you're always zagging. Everyone's like, you know what? I just want to take it easy in December. Probably going to take a nap for 3 weeks. And you go, there's networking opportunities to be had. And I couldn't agree with you more, Lauren. So here, let's start with the principle first, and let's talk about how we can apply it this holiday season. So the principle that I've always lived by, and feel free to disagree with me if you want, Lauren. That would actually be more fun.
Oh,
If you
good.
did, is for me the focus is not trying to talk to everyone, not trying to be all things to all people, but rather asking ourselves a simple question, which is, who do we want our 5,000 people to be? What do I mean by that? So here's an analogy that I always explain to my clients, which I guess you're one of. And the key is, let's say that we meet somebody new every few days, which is very optimistic. Most of us don't, but let's just assume that to be true. So in a year, 365 days, you'll probably meet 100 people in a year. So let's say you live 50 more years from where you are today. So let's say in your case, you're 35. So let's say you live until 85. In my case, let's say I live until 75. What happens is if you multiply 50 years by 100 people every year, that's 5,000 people. So out of billions of individuals in the world, you only get to meet 5,000 in your lifetime, which is surprisingly is a very tiny number. So the question you always want to ask yourself is, who do you want those 5,000 people to be? What value systems do they have? Where do they hang out? What are they doing with their life? And when you start to think like that, then your energy focus and everything you do starts to change.
Okay. So now in your lifetime, you're going to cultivate 5,000 people, approximately 100 people a year. And so you're going through this kind of matriculation in your mind. Okay, who are those people going to be, and what are their values, and how do I build that web or that that network of those people? And so why does this make so much sense for the holidays?
Right. The reason this makes so much sense for the holidays is because energy is your most important asset besides your time. Energy is everything. And if you're pouring into the wrong people just because you want something like a job or a promotion, it's very short term. You'll end up, the second you get the thing, you won't want a relationship with them. And that's not really the key to life. So especially in the context of the holiday season, what you want to do, and I recommend this in any season, but especially now, since people are a lot more loose, it's easier to talk to them, is make a list of the top 10 relationships you have right now in your network. Who are the top 10 people that you just really admire, that you're close friends with? And here's how I would rank the list, not based on money, not based on status, but based on what that person has done for you. I've always believed that action speaks louder than words. And what happens is through that list, you start to figure out really quickly who you should be focused on this holiday season. So one thing I'm doing right now with my network is I'm sending appreciation gifts, I'm sending texts, I'm sending voice messages, video messages to my top 10, my top 20. But notice how I didn't say top 100. Notice how I didn't say top 200. I'm really focused on tripling down on my top relationships, my top clients, my top accounts, everyone at the top, because all of those people know other exceptional people. Whereas I think what most people make the mistake of doing, Lauren, is they try and be too scatterbrained with this. They kind of just say, okay, well, I want to be a vice president at this company, or I want this, so I'm going to start sending like a bunch of these random messages to people we haven't spoken to in 6 months, versus going, what have I done for my top 10, my top 20 people? And I guarantee every single person who's listening to this, if you made that list, you'll realize very quickly that 60 to 70% of your top relationships you haven't done anything for in the last month. You haven't done anything really significant for in the last 2. And that's really where the focus should be.
Okay, so I'm just going to recap this because I think that this is not only breakthrough, but also nuanced, right? So most people don't think like this. Okay, in my lifetime, who do I want my top 5,000 people to be? And I'm accumulating maybe 100 new people a year and really deciding, making a very discerning choice between who you want to pour yourself into and then rewarding and also, being proactive about rewarding those top 20 versus everyone, because those 20 equal the Pareto principle, where it's the 80-20 rule, right?
Right,
those top 20 really are your best equity in terms of those relationships. So, okay, awesome. Fantastic. We got that down. Now the question is, what do you do and what do you say to them in those moments where it's either a new person that you decided, ooh, this is going to be one of my 100, or somebody that you previously have built a bond with?
Absolutely. Great question. So there's 2 parts of that. Let's start with the new person. To keep this really simple, then I'll give examples, tactics. Is the principle is make a list of the questions that you're personally excited about answering yourself. Let me repeat that one again. What are the questions that you are personally excited about? And ask those questions. So the questions I love to ask other people and that I love answering are questions like, what are you the most excited about? What are you grateful for? What are you super passionate about? What's a project that's coming out? What's your life mission? What's your purpose? So I'm very mission driven. So those are the types of questions I ask. But that also implies, and this is a big thing I believe, relationship building is a filtering game. For every one rock star you're going to meet that you're going to say, wow, where has this person been my whole life? You pretty much have to meet 99 okay people. And I'm just being honest. For every rock star, and for everyone, that rock star is different. One person that Lauren can see as a rock star, I'll see as an okay person. And one person I see as a rock star, Lauren might see as an okay person. And okay doesn't mean bad. Okay can simply mean that our energies aren't aligned. That we don't have the same level of intensity. We don't have the same level of energy. And that's also totally fine. But then the key is when you ask these questions to them, the questions you want to ask, like the ones I just asked, or questions like, what is the truth that you believe in that most people disagree with you on? That's a favorite one I got from Peter Thiel, who's a big mentor of mine. You start to figure out who are the people that actually are interested in answering these questions and who are the people who would rather talk about the weather. And I'll be the first one to say, I don't like to talk about the weather. So somebody who just goes, oh, well, I'm really passionate about, I don't know, like the holidays. That person, I just go, yeah, I'm not talking to this person. There's not somebody I want to spend time with. I've gotten old really fast. I think that's the key on this. But the other person goes, oh, I don't really know, but let me think about it for 20 seconds. And then it's a good question. Those people I really like, right? So even if they don't have the answer, just the fact that they want to answer it and think about it. And a lot of you, especially if you're job seekers, you're probably wondering, what does this have anything to do with the job? Isn't like corporate like all about politics and blah, blah, blah. Here's my perspective on this. For some people, that is true. But for your top 10, top 20 relationship, that's really the 80% for everyone on this call right now. That percentage, you want to ask the esoteric questions because those are the people that back you no matter what. Those are the people you actually have a relationship with. So like for me, if I needed a job, which I won't, but let's say I need a job tomorrow, I can get a job in a week. Not because I'm special and I played politics, but it's because my top 20 relationships I've built, through my conversation. I genuinely like spending time with them, genuinely already having conversation with them. So if I need a job for them, they'll do the favor right away without question. And I want that from everyone.
Right. So I like what you're talking about here, right? This question, for example, the list of questions you're personally excited about is going to be a complete differentiator from, so how's your COVID been? Or, where are you going on vacation? Or how are your holidays? Right? Those, I personally love anything that's not cliche. I don't want to be sounding like everybody else. And each one of us who are here on this call and anybody else who's listening on the replay, set yourself apart as, people like Sarah Johnston or Virginia Franco would say, different is better than better. So be different in those conversations so that you are creating a memorability. So this question, what are you personally most excited about, gives people an opportunity to share something that is happening in their life, in their work, and with their relationships. It's open-ended and it hopefully gets them thinking. And are there any specific questions that are good for, this is a work question, this is better for people who are, going to be your social contacts? How do you differentiate those?
Absolutely. So all the questions that we talked about right now, definitely relevant for social contacts. In terms of work, there's different levels to that game. So let's say you're trying to get a coffee to get a job and you haven't really met the other person, then those questions will probably be a lot more focused on the job, on asking impressive questions that develop a sort of expertise where the person sees you as, wow, this person's really impressive. So the outcome is different. I think the message I really want to convey, and then we'll get into those tactics, is 80 to 90% of your time should be spent on building the social contacts because those people will get you a reference, which is obviously the number one way to get a job or any other outcome than anything else. But in the 10 to 20% of the time, like the time when I applied for consulting firms a few years ago, when I was still trying to get a job in corporate, yeah, a lot of the times when I would get coffees with people, I would put a persona on, which is what is the persona that will make you the most successful at getting that job, which is calm, relaxed, happy, positive. Wow, this person would be great with clients. Oh, we should really get Brendan an interview. I think he'd be a perfect consultant. So being that individual and then asking questions like, what is the biggest misconception about your industry? Oh, I heard about this recent deal that happened at this company. Would love to hear more about it and what your experience has been. What industry are you working on? And asking them very specific questions that most importantly, no one else is asking. Right?
I like
Go ahead. Absolutely. And going back to what you said that I really want to push on is why would you try and be like everyone else if there's only one version of you? Right? There's only one version of you. Why are you trying to be like everyone else? Because if that's all you're going to do, then there's no way you're going to stand out from the other sea of applicants.
Right. So I want to also give a complete shout out to the people that are joining here. Thank you, Sarah Clay. Always great to see you. Wonderful, wonderful. Denise, I love that you're showing up here. And thank you so much, Denise, Bridget, whichever one is most preferable to you. Michelle Ferguson, always appreciate you in the house. So thank you. And please, of course, ask your questions because this is going to show up. This is going to happen. We're all going to be in situations, like I said, virtually or in person, that are going to turn the dial up on conversations and communication and networking. So the last piece that you just mentioned, I'm just recapping, is impressive questions, right? You're using this as an example. What is the biggest misconception that's happening in your industry, right? And so this, I spoke with somebody yesterday who is interviewing for a company that does brick and mortar retail business, right? ooh, like, isn't that a misconception? We think that everything is now happening online. Why would you want to focus in on that? So it might be really interesting to play in this kind of persona piece, right? A little bit of a contrarian, not to poke at it like, a scab or anything, but really to offer an opportunity for that person to delve into and have a little bit of a banter back and forth and leave that person with something else. And how do you leave those conversations? Okay, now we've just had this kind of, back and forth about the misconceptions that are happening in your industry. So how do you leave that conversation so that it actually lands on what's next without being like, oh, we should have coffee?
Absolutely. So it depends what the outcome is, I would say. So let's talk about both the work related one and the social context one. So social context one, I don't say this publicly a lot, but I might as well because it's your show. I make a decision on that first call on whether or not this person is going to be on my sports team or not, because I see networking like being on a sports team minus friends and family. So minus my mother and like people I've been friends with like since high school, minus those people. Those people get a rank 0, which is like a top. They don't get ranked essentially. Basically, how I see it is for everyone else that I meet, I go, will this person help me achieve the goals? Is this person a go-giver? Is this person helping other people? And do I just like speaking to this person? And a lot of the times the answer is actually no. It's just you don't actually notice it when you're speaking to me. And the reason I say that so directly is because life is short, ladies and gentlemen, right? You don't have time to build relationships with everyone. And I think the people who lose are the people who try and build relationships with everyone, and the people that win build very, very deep relationships with a small group of people. Those are the people that are successful. And the reason I mention that is if that person is a yes on the sports team, then I make every attempt to add massive value to that individual. I call it like going the extra mile for that person. But, and here's the punchline, is if they're not going to be on my sports team, I still go the extra meter for them, which is much more than everyone else does. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm having a conversation with Bill, and at the end of the conversation, I go, well, Bill's not someone that's going to be on my sports team. I asked Bill, what can I do to support him? He goes, oh, I'm trying to achieve this goal. So I go, Bill's not on the sports team, but I'm going to take 5 minutes out of my life to send him a podcast episode that I think is going to benefit him. But just doing that, because people really underestimate the extra meter thing, like going the extra meter for somebody, because nobody goes the extra meter for anybody. Even their closest relationship, they don't even go the extra meter for. So do that. But in the context of work, you have to make a call based on that conversation. So I'll give you an example. When I had a coffees across the consulting firms, I did BCG, McKinsey, Roland Berger, like a bunch of them. I would realize really quickly if they liked me or not by having a conversation with them. If they were smiling, if their body language was still focused on me, if they really enjoyed spending time with me, if they looked dull or not. And there's a lot of people I met who felt that way about me. And this is why it's a filtering game. And then there's other people who go, man, I really like speaking to this person just based on their follow-up emails. So it's a really, you have to gauge it. But for the people that are, you see the connection, you see it build up, then you go to the next step with that person. And for every industry that's different, but in my industry, the next step is to do a case with that person. So essentially I would say something like, hey, I really enjoyed speaking to you, Chloe. Do you mind doing a case with me? Like just to see like, and then that person would, and I know that person would say yes, and they do. I do the case with them, I blow their minds, and then they refer me into the firm. So BCG was the same thing.
Okay, so take this into the sports team. So now, right, I like this idea. So do you want this person on your all-star team? This would qualify them to go the extra mile. Okay, so now I got a rock star. Now what do I do?
Now this is the good. So yeah, you got a rock star. You got super lucky. Like for example, I'll give you a personal story. 2 years ago, actually a year ago, one of my friends, Sam Kamani, okay, he's the host of a podcast in New Zealand. I pitched like hundreds of shows when COVID started. And Sam, for some reason, back when I was just getting started, he's like, yeah, sure, let's interview this guy. Sam was amazing. But he's probably one of like 5 relationships I kept out of 500 guest interviews, just so people have the numbers. Like, so it's pretty much 1 out of 100. And that guy was like, hey, you should meet my friend Billy. And I was like, who's Billy? And he was like, "Oh, he's an ex-Tesla executive. He's got a great podcast. He's an award-winning film." I was like, sure, I'll meet Billy. And then I got on a call with this guy, and I realized 10 minutes in that this guy was like easily going to be in the top 5 relationships in my network. We vibed so much. So then, this is where people lose. Is now the question is, how far are you willing to go for your rock stars? So let me just list off everything I've done for relationships like Billy. He's number 2 on my list, by the way. That's how high up he is, just so people have an idea of the numbers. So those people, if they call me, I pick up and I sit down with them for 2 hours if they need something. And I don't expect any. Billy has still not gotten me a single client, not a single one, right? But that person is at the top of my hit list. So I take calls for him. If he needs to bounce back ideas, I'll do it. If he needs me to fly out to LA, I'll figure out a way to be there if he absolutely needs me, right? Same thing with my number 1 relationship, Bombsy, my business partner. If that guy needs me to do something, I'll stay up until 1 a.m. to do it. If that person needs me to send him podcasts, if he needs intros, I'll make 10, right? So the other piece that the reason I'm listing all this stuff is how much are you pouring into your rock stars? The best way to network, to keep things really simple, if you just came to the live right now, here's the punchline. The punchline is pour so much into your rock stars that your rock stars introduce you to other rock stars. That's the easiest thing
All
to
right.
do.
Okay. So this is like serious gold right now. My thing is, yes, I will go to all ends.
She really does.
There's no question. But I think that the real point that you're making here, Brendan, is that you're essentially scaling your network, right? You're looking at it, and I use this analogy a lot with clients when they're thinking about their skill set. But I often treat things like a food label, right? The things that are sitting at the top of the food label, those are the key ingredients. So those are the reasons why you are essentially buying that product. If you're buying tomato sauce and tomatoes are down at the bottom, you're putting it back on the shelf. Your expectation is it's going to be there. So in your network, who is at the very, very top of the food chain or the food label. And what you're saying is those people, yeah, like heavy users, they get more preferential treatment. And the rest of those people, it doesn't mean that you drop them like a hotcake. What it means is that you don't go the extra mile, you go the extra meter. And as Michelle said, she loves the extra meter and the transcription to beat her. So extra meter to beater. I like that a lot, Michelle. Thank you so much. So investing in those relationships, and when you're in those situations where you're going to be in that, that collection of people, your job is to essentially figure out what your filter is. But you have to know before you get in there what is deeply meaningful to you. So, and I like what Sarah said too, that she hates those few seconds when you're thinking of the next question to ask at networking, and having that bank of questions is a great idea. So, it's not weird to go into a situation and have a couple of, juicy tidbits that you have prepared, right? You're all about preparation. So, no doubt about that. Okay, awesome. So now you're leaving, right? And you've found your rock stars, and you've decided, oh, I'm going to pour all this into them, and everyone's taking off. So what does that closer look like? What does the closer look like so that you maintain, that great impact that you made at the party and the doors are about to shut?
Absolutely. So here's my perspective on this. Being on the sports team also means, in my opinion, okay, not for everyone, that they also want to be on your sports team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's also about being impressive enough yourself that the other person wants to be in your circle right away as soon as they meet you. So here's a crazy thing that I do, that I teach people on, that you can all take action on, is write down the person you admire the most in your life. Okay, the number 1 person, who is the person you would love to have dinner with? You'd be like, oh my God, if they were like even remotely close to my, even if they're my D leagues, like just a small, like I could just like give them a high five every year, my life would be completely different. Like write that person. And then ask yourself a simple question. If that person was your friend, your colleague, what feedback would you give them right now that would add value to their life, even if you don't have a relationship with them? And that's what really gets your mind thinking about how to upgrade a sports team. And the reason I'm helping you all condition your mind that way, because eventually, whether it's in 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, you'll eventually meet that person. So when you do, you might only have one moment with that individual. What are you going to do to set yourself apart from everyone else? So for me, all of the people I admire, I have a notepad on my as celebrities. So like I already know what's going to happen with me and Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay, I'm going to invest in his 10K thing, spend a day with him, and I know exactly what questions to ask him where he goes, who's this guy? Same thing with Lewis and everyone else. I already have all those questions right. Well, actually, I already talked to him, but all those different people. And I encourage all of you to do that for your long-term goals. Who are the people you admire? Start prepping those questions right away, because even if you never meet them, it conditions your mind to be more interesting right away, to be more curious. And it improves the way that you network with everyone else. Because let's say I go, okay, I'm preparing for Gary Vee, like simple example, and I'm thinking through all these questions and ideas. Well, I don't have to just use those with Gary Vee. I can use them with Lauren. I can use them with people around me. So just thinking on that wavelength will already put you ahead of 99.9% of people, because I don't know anyone besides myself that do this. And I think that's really crazy. So take that extra mile, the extra 10 miles in this case.
Okay. And so are you offering this feedback as you're closing out how does this wrap up into the closer?
Right. So do you mean closer in the sense of like, how do you maintain the relationship, or like,
No, you're going to leave the party, right?
Oh,
Leave the party. And so you've decided that you want to pour yourself into this, but they're mingling over here and you're over here, and now everyone's taking off. So
right.
what do you do as the closer, or the last piece of this conversation, so that you're taking it to the next step?
Sure. I mean, for me, I'm not as direct. For me, it's more just like adding them on social, or just adding them on Instagram and be like, hey, like we should definitely get on a Zoom sometime, like something super simple. And the reason I don't like to be too pushy with the close is simply because if that person isn't as excited as I am to be on the sports team, they shouldn't be on the sports team.
Ah,
And this is what I think most people miss, is like, just because you can talk to Seth Godin doesn't mean Seth Godin wants to talk to you. Right?
okay. And so how do you know if Seth wants to talk to you?
Well, I mean, it's super simple, right? When you meet him, you're right, and you start having those conversations, and you realize it goes deep, and then you guys have fun, and then you suggest like very subtly, hey, like let's get on a Zoom call sometime. And if he goes, oh, we'll see, then just leave it there,
Right.
like, because remember, we're wasting energy on people. And not to say Seth's a bad guy, by the way, right? He's probably getting like thousands of requests, probably an amazing dude, right? So it's all about figuring out what makes sense for us in that relationship. So I'll give you an easy example, right? So I pitched 100 really, really high profile shows, like people who are doing hundreds of thousands of downloads. And of course, 99 of them were like, no, not yet, soon, right? So I'm not hurt by that. You kind of just go, one day that'll happen. But one of those 100 people said, hey, I really like your YouTube channel. I'd love to do a podcast. And I was like, whoa, okay. So focus on the person who bet on you. And that was an awesome show. We had a lot of fun. It was probably the biggest show I've been on. And that's the point, is don't get scared by the rejection. Don't get worried by the thought that, crap, I need to close everybody. Oh, I just met Lewis. I just met Gary. I need to close them right now. No. That's not the perspective. The perspective is this. Close the people who want to be closed, and keep the door open for the people you want to close in the future, but build your way up to those people. Have a strategy for people who are 5 levels above you, and have a simpler strategy for people who are 1 or 2 levels above you.
Awesome. So thank you. It says, this is awesome, Brendan Kumarasamy. Such great tips. And this is great, not just for networking, but as you're preparing for sales calls and a corporate call. Thank you for covering this topic. I have a call in 2 minutes. We got you. And I like this too from Tina. Ask questions. You'll be unforgotten. Greetings from Belgium. Don't invite to Zoom.
Too soon, I think. I think it's too soon.
To Zoom. Ah, that's smart. Okay, I like that too. No full court press. But I do really want to go back to this because I think that this is important. There has to be reciprocity. right? It's not going to be an unrequited relationship. There has to be some kind of sign up from both ends, right? I want to be on your team and you want me to be on your team. And so that's pretty much, an intuitive gut check, right? Are they leaning into this the same way that you're leaning into it? And is this a mutually beneficial opportunity for both of you to leverage, each other's networks, other opportunities down the road? How can we help each other and really provide, that amazing, win-win piece that is going to be, within your top 20%. So really assess your energy. Where do you want to pour yourself into during these holidays? How are you going to stand out? I'm going to take this back, right? So energy is everything. Who do you want to pour yourself into, right? And invest in those social conversations, because those social conversations will lead you to other social conversations. Come prepared. Put that list of questions together that are not the ho-hum, you know what they are. What was your favorite gift? And ask impressive questions and treat networking kind of like a sports team. And do you want this person or that person to be on your all-star team? And then, of course, and do they want you? And take it from there. Any other closing remarks that you want to share with us, Brendan Kumarasamy, one of my all-time favorite people in my top 5%, easily.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate it. Yeah, I would say the last closing mark is really on the point of reciprocity. And this is where we go into the tough love. For those of you who are still sticking around, which we appreciate, is what are you doing to earn yourself on other people's sports teams? I wouldn't expect Seth Godin to want a relationship with me if I wasn't doing something big in my life, right? So it's important for you to self-assess yourself and go into the idea of, wait a second, okay, what are the masterminds, the groups, the programs that Gary Vee, Lewis Howes, all the people I admire are investing in? And how do I make myself so impressive that those people want to have a relationship with me? Right. So it's also important to be empathetic to them. And I think this is where a lot of people get lost. They go, well, why isn't that person talking to me? Well, why should they talk to you? Right. Because that person is so busy. Like if you think you're busy, they're on a whole other level of busy where they're getting thousands of DMs a day. Why should they want a relationship with you? So it's important for you to think about that. So for me, I don't have any expectations. I don't expect Gary Vee to be my friend. But I definitely do expect him to want a relationship with me if I'm the number one communication expert in the world, which isn't the case right now. But one day when that happens. So I don't go like, oh yeah, I'm going to meet Gary Vee, asking these questions. He's going to be my best friend. That's a wrong expectation. But rather building yourself up to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it happens or not. So it's also about auditing yourself and going, what have I done for myself lately to improve myself, to make myself better so that I earn my seat at the table and not just be given it? And I think that's the most powerful thing of all.
I think that is critical. I know that Sarah also was saying, Tegan, actually, self-assessments are critical. So you can't be on the rock star all-star team if you're not getting the reps in. You've got to really earn your spot. And so keep practicing the questions, keep going to those things so that in preparing the questions, like, oh my God, I love that, So if I were to meet Chris Do, great, but now what? Like, am I prepared? No, you can't have the expectation that this person is going to be in your top 2% if you haven't put the work in and earn that place. So all messages really important. I hope that this is super helpful and actionable as you are building these new opportunities, especially during the network where we're known for having more social gatherings. And Brendan, always, 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 from the bottom of my heart, you are not only the #1 communication expert that I know of, but just a fine, fine, fine individual who blows my mind on a regular basis. So we love you all. Thank you so much for joining this blast and a half. And of course, have a wonderful holiday season every single day, and keep earning. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll talk soon, everyone. Thanks for being here.